A lot of times when people see this Toyota Yaris, they want to say, hey, what a nice race car. And while I'm flattered every time I hear that, all I can think is, this is not a race car. It's a track car. There is a difference. And I'm going to show you that difference today by showing you a real Toyota Yaris race car. I went out to the SCCA Runoffs where I saw this Toyota Yaris. It's changed hands a few times since Jason Isley originally built it, and now Tom Broring is running it in H production. So this is an actual race car Yaris. It is very different from mine. First of all, it's got the 1NZFE engine, different internals. It's got different third gear and fourth gear in the transmission. I believe it's got the 4.3 final drive. It has an AEM ECU instead of the stock. The main thing that makes this a race car is how stripped out it is, and the fact that it has a spec roll cage. This is designed for wheel-to-wheel racing, where something could come in and hit you right here. You want, a door bar. You want bars like that to stop anything from hitting you. As you can see, this one does not have a cage. It's got a bar and another bar. Nothing safety-wise, just a little stiffness and a mount for the harnesses. Should this have a roll cage or a roll bar? Absolutely it should, but it's not required for time attack or track days or anything like that. Wheel-to-wheel racing actually has that as a requirement, and not just a roll cage. The roll cage stipulations change with the class. If you get an old circle track car, it is not going to meet the standards and regulations for Lemons racing. Despite how they look, I've heard that Lemons Racing actually has some of the highest regulations when it comes to roll cages. You could be racing against so many different types of cars and things like that, that they basically say the safety stuff has to be at the highest standard because everything else is not. I spent a lot of time asking Tom about what had been put on the car, specifically the aftermarket parts in the engine bay. That's a very solid looking bushing.
Instead of making a urethane bushing, they make a urethane insert, so it goes in the airspace of the factory bushing.
Oh, I get you. Okay.
Of course, the main difference is going to be tires. Pretty much every class at the Runoffs is running on slick tires.
My car is not on slick tires. These are 200 treadwear tires. Specifically, these are Falcon RT660s, which is the required tire currently for Grid Life, Club TR, and Club SC. I've talked plenty of times about how much tires can really affect lap times. So 200 treadwear for a lot of people is the kind of bang for your buck category where you can do a lot of track days on them without having to buy tires over and over again. With slicks, you're probably going through multiple sets of slicks a weekend, especially if you want to be competitive. 200 treadwear tires can probably last you a whole season depending on how competitive you actually want to be in whatever category you're in. But certainly when you're learning, a good 200 treadwear tire is really going to help you feel out what's going on with the car and the tires.
Next up is going to be wheels. You want something light, but you don't have to break the bank.
Yeah, so these are what he was running.
The NKs.
And they're, $200 a piece, which is, and they're, really well-made wheels, and they're really light. There's not a lot of,
Not a lot of drawbacks to the NKs, yeah. Yeah, they do tend to bend, I've heard.
Yes, but they're affordable to replace.
These Volks are probably $500 to $600 a wheel, and the Konigs I originally started on were less than $100 a wheel. But in this H production class, you need every advantage you can get because that Yaris is up against bug-eyed sprites and all of the kinds of things that are definitely more slippy in the air than a Yaris. If you want an entirely hatchback category, you'd be looking at something like Bspec. Bspec is where Chris Taylor races, and he's the guy that tuned my original ECU for the 1.5 liter engine. Bspec is a lower class than H production. Cars are going to be heavier, and you're allowed to change less from the original spec of the car.
A Bspec Yaris would be running a stock ECU with a tune. That's actually what I had on this car before. The H production Yaris is running an aftermarket ECU because that helps it deal with all the internals that have been changed. There's actually supposed to be one other Yaris here this weekend, but Chris was just telling me that he packed up and went home because the motor blew, which is a shame because I would have loved to not only show you guys that car, but I feel like we could have done an engine swap overnight, right? They don't take that long. No, in all seriousness, I would have loved to help him work on the car overnight. We both got to be up for the first race anyway, so why not make it make it an all-nighter. So I've actually spent a decent amount of time looking into wheel-to-wheel race series that the Yaris could compete in. And very often, just like with the Time Attack series of TRD series and GR Movement, I found that what I'm building doesn't quite fit into any of the categories. Bspec was the original one that I was looking at, and Bspec cars are very, very close to stock, just at a roll cage. Tom's H production Yaris has a lot more going on, but I wouldn't be able to run the 2ZR engine that's in there right now. However, while I was at Runoffs, I did see a category that this car could be a part of, the STL class. Basically, the requirements in STL are that you have a vehicle that is naturally aspirated and under 2 liters. From there, they give you a weight minimum based on the displacement of your engine, and aside from safety stuff, that's about it. So if we ever wanted to move over to wheel racing, an STL build is a possibility. I don't think this Yaris would be all that competitive in STL, but an STL built Yaris would also technically be eligible for GLTC at Grid Life. And depending on what I did with the livery, it could probably get away with running lemons. I don't know, I think it would be competitive there, but it depends on what class it gets put into based on what's on it. Lemons judges are a lot more reasonable and less by the book. And if they're doing something stupid and fun, they're more on board with that kind of thing. So when does the STL build start? Not for a long time. First and foremost, I haven't even gotten the 2ZR swap done yet. Let's at least get this running and get this up and ready for Time Attack before we start doing an STL build. Secondly, I play fast and loose with a lot of the stuff that's going on with the car, and I'm not super confident in my ability to do anything, and I wouldn't ever want to mess around with that when it comes to safety. So things like a roll cage, fire suppression system, proper safety gear in the seat and the harness, that would be something that I would want to give to a professional, which means that it would be very expensive. I'm not saying it's not a possibility, but let's finish this Digivolution before we move on to the next one, huh? After talking to Tom about his car, I did look up that trans mount insert, and I think I am going to try that because this mount has a lot of space to it, and it is pretty soft. It's great for getting this engine in and out, but could definitely benefit from stiffening up that trans mount. One thing I've noticed with every wheel-to-wheel Yaris I've seen is that this door is completely gutted. You can take out all this metal, all the hardware up here. You don't need any of it. The only way you can do that though is if you have a door bar here. Once you're down to just that thin sheet of metal, you need some other kind of protection. It's worth pointing out though that Tom's Yaris with the entire cage and everything was sitting at a little over 2,100 pounds with him in it. And mine is sitting at 2,200 with me in it because even though I don't have that cage, I've got all this extra metal and all this dash stuff and a bunch of other things that we could lose. After talking with a bunch of people at the Runoffs, I also got an appreciation for what it means to be running a 20-minute to 45-minute race versus what it means to be setting one solid fast lap. Your understanding of the tires, your mechanical sympathy, your priorities all need to be a little bit different. Striking the curb every lap is probably not a good idea in an endurance race, but if you're looking to set fastest time, you need every inch of that track you can get. For me, this was one of the challenges in Lemons because I knew where I wanted to push on a certain track and I knew where I could get the most time from my experience. And for me, having more mechanical sympathy meant slowing down, but then I couldn't find the new way to find that speed. So hopefully you've got a better idea of how a race car differs from a track car and how a track car differs from a car on jack stands that doesn't go to the track because this thing has been on jacks for far too long and we need to just get it out on the road again. The swap's nearly done. I just need to button things up. I promise I'm working on it when I can. In the next video, I'll show you a bunch of the new parts that are going on this engine before we start it up and a bunch of the things that I'm having custom made to make this thing work. So look out for that video. I will probably start it off by wearing the same clothes because I'm gonna get to work right now.